of songs. There is a good fragrance, and then there is the oil. The Talmud says that all the mitzvahs that our forefathers did before you, they're like good fragrances. But we are like the oil. And the Talmud says, how we like the oil? Because our mitzvahs are kemerik mikli al kli. It's like pouring from one vessel to another. So the meaning of categorizing our grandparents' mitzvahs, Avraham ben Yitzchak and Yaakov's mitzvahs, as fragrances versus the oil means two things. It means a fragrance, as opposed to the oil itself, has two characteristics. First of all, a fragrance is not the thing itself; it's just a fragrance of something. And second of all, because it's only a fragrance, it's not the thing itself, so it eventually wears off and the fragrance goes away. If you have the oil itself, the fragrance stays. But if you only have the place where the oil once was, so then it doesn't make a lasting change on the place that it's in, it goes away. So the mitzvahs that our mitzvah Yaakov did, it's like the oil. How's like the oil? It's like the oil in the sense that, like a fragrance. And it's like a fragrance in the sense that it didn't cause a lasting change in the physical world. It didn't transform the physical world. It didn't stay. It's like the fragrance that goes away. And why was it only like a fragrance? Why didn't it make a lasting change? Because like a fragrance, it wasn't the thing itself. It didn't draw down the essence of Hashem. The Medrash is very specific, and it says all the mitzvahs that our forefathers did before you are like fragrances. There are two different kinds of mitzvahs that our forefathers did. There are mitzvahs that they did by themselves. There are mitzvahs they did because Hashem told them to do. Hashem specifically said to do these mitzvahs. So the Medrash says that not only the mitzvahs that they did by themselves, but even the mitzvahs that Hashem explicitly told them to do, they're also like fragrances.
What did he tell them to do besides Bris Milah?
Bris Milah is a good example. We're going to talk about Bris Milah. So let's first talk about the mitzvahs that they did not get a specific commandment to do. So those mitzvahs are easier to understand. Why is it that a mitzvah can have the power to bring godliness to the world, to make the object with which you do a mitzvah retain kedusha, retain holiness? The word kedusha, holiness means it's separate, it's above creation. So gashmius and kedusha are the opposites. Gashmius means something which has the parameters of the physical, and it has limitations, and has beginning and has an end. Kedusha means it's infinite, it's beyond. So it's not possible that a mitzvah could really stay in the physical world, and the holiness of Hashem be in the physical. It doesn't make sense. They're opposites. The only reason why it's possible is because Hashem gave us a mitzvah. Because the mitzvah comes from the essence of Hashem. Hashem has no parameters. Hashem has no limitations. And therefore, it's possible that a physical action that you're doing, although it's only physical, yet in that physical action there is kedusha, there's holiness. So it's because it comes from Hashem Himself. So because the mitzvahs that the others didn't have, they did them by themselves. So what could they do? They could only do as much as they had the ability to do with the power that they had as human beings, as the others, not just human beings, as tzaddikim, but it's still limited to the characteristics of their righteousness. Avram as chesed, and Yitzchak as gvura, and Yaakov as teferes, as who they were with the souls that they had. That's what they were able to tap into when they did a mitzvah. They were able to tap into their own spirituality as far as they could reach. There's discussion in Gemara about the depth of the mikveh that the Kohen Gadol would immerse in on Yom Kippur. And the Gemara comes to a conclusion, I think it's 23 amas deep. How does the Gemara know how deep it is? The Gemara says the mikveh was received its water from a place called Ein Eitam. And Ein Eitam was at this level of elevation. And it's not possible that the mikveh should be higher than its source. So in a similar way, it's not possible that Avraham and Yaakov could possibly reach a level higher than their source. If the mitzvahs they're doing are only based upon their own decision to do the mitzvahs, that's not possible they could reach a higher level than themselves. That's true for the mitzvahs before giving the Torah. It didn't have the commandment of Hashem. Versus mitzvahs that we do, which have the commandment of Hashem, uniquely we're now able to change the physical world. And that's why it says Mashiach will come, the glory of Hashem will be revealed, and all flesh will see Hashem.
Why do we call them mitzvahs then, in their case?
Why do you call them mitzvahs if they weren't commanded to them?
And they didn't reach higher than themselves.
We'll get to you later. You've been having trouble for a while, so yeah, we're not used to your good question. Let's get to the mitzvah soon. Chaim.
Just to repeat, it was 23 what?
Amos. And Amos is about an argument if it's a foot and a half or 2 feet. So the it says Mashiach will come, the glory of Hashem will be revealed, and all flesh will see Hashem. So we know that the world will be full of knowledge of Hashem. It says in the Torah, Mol Arz Deis Hashem, the world will be full of knowledge of Hashem. But usually we understand it to mean the people, all people will learn the knowledge of Hashem, not just Jews, even non-Jews. But it says more. It says V'ger Zevim Kevis. It says that the wolf will lie with a lamb. And as we learned, the Rabbi explains that that's connected to their knowledge in Hashem. It says that in the Mishnah that there is an argument about whether or not you could domesticate a wild animal. So the Gemara says that Ari, Azeva, Deva, Namavabardlas, a lion and a bear, according to Rabbi Lazar, they can be domesticated. It means although they didn't have that nature before, they can learn to become domestic animals. So therefore, when the knowledge of Hashem will fill the world, there's something they'll learn as well. They'll also become at peace because of the knowledge of Hashem somehow. But Chassidus says even more. Not just the animals, but Hashem, the world being full of knowledge of Hashem means the doimim, the inanimate. The inanimate, the word inanimate in Hebrew means the silent. It means there's also godliness in the silent, also godliness in the inanimate matter, and that also will be full of the knowledge of Hashem. The glory of Hashem will be revealed in the physical reality. But what's going to happen when Mashiach comes is merely a revelation of what we're doing today. It's not that Mashiach is going to come and do something new. Mashiach is not going to come and change the world. What Mashiach is going to do is merely expose the achievement of what we've done today. It means every mitzvah that we do today brings the holiness of Hashem in the world, not just the mitzvah itself. So you put on tefillin. So there's a holiness of the tefillin itself. Then there's a holiness that the mitzvah does to you because you put the tefillin on you, and that stays. A famous story the Rebbe said about some famous rabbi that he was complaining and speaking about children saying psukim. The Rebbe made a campaign that every child should say, the children should say 12 Torah passages, and all Chabad gatherings they say these Torah passages. And this rabbi was complaining. He's like, it's terrible. They're screaming Shema Yisrael in public. What is that? And the Rebbe said, how could it be that a Jew could be opposed to saying Torah passages? It must be, the Rebbe said, there's only one explanation. He has pasal tefillin. The only explanation could be he has a pasal tefillin. Another occasion, when the Rebbe came out with the mitzvah campaign of putting mezuzahs in every door. Every Jewish home should have mezuzahs. So this same rabbi was also complaining about the mezuzah campaign. How could people put on mezuzahs and tell them it's going to bring protection to them? It's sacrilegious and it's terrible. And it's not like he didn't have any source for what he said. That Maimonides seems to say something similar, but it's not what Maimonides means. But the Rebbe said something else. The Rebbe said, how is it possible when it says in the Gemara that mezuzah brings protection, that someone could say that it doesn't and discourage people from having mezuzahs? It must be this person has pasal mezuzah in his home. There's no other explanation. Because mezuzah and a tefillin have an effect on you, on your environment, on where you are. It's not just on the parchment of the tefillin and on the boxes of the tefillin, but it has a lasting effect on the person that wears the tefillin. Why? Because it comes from the tzav ha-mitzvahs. It comes from the essence of Hashem who commanded us to keep His mitzvahs, and the essence of Hashem is beyond all parameters, and therefore the borders that separate between the physical and the spiritual are suspended in the face of the essence of Hashem, who is beyond everything. But not only that, not only the glory of Hashem, Mashiach comes, going to be in the mitzvahs that we do. We'll see the glory of Hashem in our tefillin and mezuzahs and in our home, but even in the places where the leather came from, or where the mitzvahs, whatever fueled the mitzvahs, where they came from, the areas where they came from are also elevated to the mitzvahs. And that's why it says that the whole world be full of the glory of Hashem. Why the whole world? Because it says in the Torah, Bereshis b'shul Yisrael, Shnikareshis b'shal Tereshis. When Hashem created the world, it was for the sake of Torah and the Jewish people. Everything in the world was created for the Jewish people, created for Torah. There's nothing in the world that's not about Torah, not about the Jewish people. So therefore, when a Jew does a mitzvah, somehow that connects to a major segment of the world that's elevated by that mitzvah. And so through all the mitzvahs of Jewish people throughout history, it elevates the entire world. A mitzvah is not limited to a certain space and a certain time. It says Yonatan's here, and he hasn't heard that story since the last time he was here, and I don't think I shared it with you guys also in a while. I'll tell you a story about this. L'chaim is a doctor in Australia, Dr. Oliver. She told me the story herself. She visited the Rebbe, and she wanted to have a private audience with the Rebbe, like everyone does. But at that time, there was a change that people could no longer have private audiences. Instead, the Rebbe said that when he speaks to people and as a group, it's like a private audience. And not only is it like a private audience, it's even better because you have the value of a tzibur, value of a minyan. Everyone listening to Rebbe together. It adds value. So she looked at this as a loser's prize. Like, yeah, that's what they're telling us, but that's not what she wanted. She had written to the Rebbe before this event, 8 years before, about this concept that we're learning. She showed the Rebbe, Chassidus says that the mitzvahs elevate the whole world, but there are places in the world that Jews will never go. Jews will never go to the jungles of Africa. Jews will never go to the entire place, to the entire region of the Sahara Desert, not to every part of the Sahara Desert. So how can you say mitzvahs elevate the whole world? It's not that there are places that no one will go. So the Rebbe didn't answer her letter. But when she came into this private audience, which didn't seem so private, the Rebbe began with talking about the impact of mitzvahs. The Rebbe said a person may ask about the desert and about the Africa and how it was possible that a mitzvah can affect all places and all times. She told me that she felt her body shaking before she even heard what the Rebbe was saying, because she realized, without even realizing, that this was a private audience. It wasn't just a public audience. And so the Rebbe said that the reason for the answer I gave is that a mitzvah has a ripple effect. It's not just the immediate thing that you're doing the mitzvah with, it has a ripple effect. And I assume the ripple effect is, just like a ripple effect, Yonatan is here. What's the name of the circles that they're called right around the center? What are the concentric circles? What are they called? Concentric, thank you. The concentric circles, they're bigger around the exact place where the stone is dropped. Similar way, I would assume that the mitzvah affects many other places, but first, Zev, look who's here.
Oh, wow.
Zev hasn't been here a couple of days.
You didn't get my text?
I did not, no.
So, Chaim. So the mitzvahs that we do aren't only in that space, but there's concentric circles, and they have a ripple effect on the immediate surroundings and farther in time, not just in space, but also in time. And so that's why Mashiach will come. The glory of Hashem will be revealed, and all flesh will see, and the whole earth, the physical earth, will be filled with the glory of Hashem. It's not something Mashiach will do, it's something that we're doing. So this is true regarding our mitzvahs. Mitzvahs before the giving of the Torah. So as we said, there's two categories: the mitzvahs that they did by themselves, and the mitzvahs that Hashem commanded them to do. So let's first discuss the mitzvahs that they did by themselves. Avraham Avinu, for example, famously prepared food for his guests, and he brought butter and he brought the tongue to his guests. So he did an act of kindness. And he did an act of kindness in a way that only Avraham Avinu could do, with the full heart of Avraham Avinu, with the big heart of Avraham Avinu. We don't imagine what that's like. We can only imagine things the way they are in ourselves. We can't imagine the kindness of Avraham Avinu. But nevertheless, the food that he brought to his guests, they weren't elevated. The butter and the tongue, they weren't elevated. They weren't changed. He did an act of kindness. How do we see this? What happened when he came to bring his guests the food. The Torah says that before he came to bring his guests the food, he was talking to Hashem. When he saw the guests, he left Hashem to greet the guests. And what do we learn from this? It's greater to have a guest than it is to greet the Shekhinah. Greater to welcome someone to your house and give them food than it is to see the Shekhinah. But the question is, that's true if you have guests. If you have angels as guests, it doesn't seem to be the same, because they're not real guests. And the proof they're not real guests is from the story itself. Avinu was waiting for guests. Avinu saw angels all the time, as we know in the story, the Torah later, that Lot never saw angels. He was very impressed with the angels. Avinu, on the other hand, was used to seeing angels. So why didn't Hashem just send them regular angels? Why do angels have to look like people? Because angels don't need to eat. So if Avinu would just see angels, there wouldn't be a mitzvah of having guests for him, because he knows the angels don't need to eat. And in fact, the Gemara says that the angels that visited Avram were like Moshe Rabbeinu visiting Mount Sinai. How are they similar? That when you go to a place, you're supposed to act accustomed to the place. So the angels visiting Avram Avinu, they pretended to eat, and Moshe Rabbeinu visiting Mount Sinai, he also didn't need to eat. So the question is, when the angels visited the world, were they similar to Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu actually didn't eat, but the angels, when they visited this world, did they actually eat, or did they pretend to eat? There's an argument. One opinion is that they didn't eat, they just pretended to eat. Another opinion is that they ate in honor of Avraham Avinu. In order to honor the effort that Avraham Avinu made for them, they ate. But whether you say they ate or you say they didn't eat, either way, there's no reason for him giving these people any food. They're not people. So how do we derive from what Avraham Avinu did that you're supposed to welcome guests, and that's more important than welcoming the Shekhinah? Avraham didn't welcome guests. And let's ask a bigger question. How could Avraham Avinu be guilty of leaving the Shekhinah for no reason? There was no reason at all he left the Shekhinah. You can't say he did it by an accident. He didn't know. If he would have known, he would never would have left the Shekhinah. It was a mistake. That's the way you simply understand it. The Shekhinah was there. He thought there were guests there. He made a mistake, and when he realized that there were angels, oh no, what did I do? That's probably the way to understand it would seem. But we can't say that. We know that there's a special value of giving tzedakah to people that are deserving, that need the tzedakah, that are and there's a Gemara talks about the merit you have in giving tzedakah in a way that it's impactful, that does something. Would you say that it's possible for Avram Avinu to give tzedakah to poor that are undeserving? That Avram Avinu will make the mistake and he would give the tzedakah to people that are undeserving. So it's obvious. Yonathan's right away thinking about the Arabs who worshipped dust to their feet, and Avram was kind to them as well. Okay, good question. But the Gemara talks about that there's a certain value of giving tzedakah to a specific cause. Let's answer that. I think I have the answer to that. The answer to that is that Avraham Avinu gave kindness to the Arabs, and he taught them about Hashem. He had a specific objective. It wasn't just pure kindness. He filtered his kindness for a specific purpose to fulfill his mission in the world, to publicize Hashem's name. But it's not possible to say that Avraham Avinu would make the mistake of contributing to someone's heroin fund. He wouldn't do that. Avraham Avinu would not give tzedakah in a way that the tzedakah would be used for heroin. Or what's the California one? What's it called?
Fentanyl?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't make sense that Avraham Avinu would be giving money to that, would go in that direction. It doesn't make sense. We know that wouldn't happen. Why is Avraham Avinu? Because Avraham Avinu, it's not possible, it says in the Gemara, Lo Yunus HaKol Hashem doesn't allow a tzaddik to make a mistake. So how could we say that Avraham Avinu made a mistake and he gave his guests, he left the Shekhinah for the sake of people that weren't really guests? How could we say that it happened? So the answer is this. Before the giving of the Torah, the function of the mitzvahs that Avraham Avinu did was just spiritual. It wasn't about the impact in the world. It was just about the connecting to the energy of kindness before the giving of the Torah. So although he had to do a physical action as well, we went to reasons for this last time, the physical performance of the mitzvahs wasn't really the focus. There were two reasons that they had to be physical as well. Just like in ourselves, if we're happy, we smile. If we're happy, our cheeks change color. There's something that our soul affects our physical body. Similarly, if Avram Avinu is experiencing kindness, the kindness of his soul, that has some kind of physical manifestation. His body is a chariot for Hashem's desire. So therefore, there's something that happens in his physical body because of him performing a spiritual thing. It can't just be only spiritual because his body is a chariot for the will of Hashem. So Avram Avinu also did a physical action, but that wasn't the focus.
You're building this on the example of the Malachim, but what about the pagan Arabs that said Birkat HaMazon? Was there lasting value there?
We're not saying there's lasting value. We're asking if there is intrinsic value. Was there anything intrinsically? What is he accomplishing by welcoming, giving them food? And that where Torah is saying that you learn from this is better to leave the Shekhinah. He left the Shekhinah for nothing, it seems. So the answer is that there was something that was being done. What was being done? He was doing an act of kindness. He was doing kindness. Before the giving of the Torah, what was kindness? What was Hachlas HaSerchim before the giving of the Torah? Before the giving of the Torah, it wasn't about the food that you were giving the guests. Before the giving of the Torah, it was about you doing an act of kindness. Since the whole focus for the giving of the Torah was about your own experience, it wasn't about the impact on the world. Therefore, that teaches us that if we're talking about personal experience, it's greater the experience of the act of kindness that Avraham Avinu did than greeting the Shekhinah. So there's something that Yontan's gonna love this. It's a bigger subject than for today, but just the simple kernel of wisdom about this story is that Avraham Avinu, his goal wasn't the impacting the physical world. His goal was the experience of himself. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the way the Torah describes the mitzvah of educating someone. When you educate a child to do lulav and esrog, does lulav have to be kosher? So according to one opinion, it does not have to be kosher. You're training your child in the action of the mitzvah, not an actual mitzvah. According to the other opinion, no, you're training your child in actually performing a mitzvah. If it's not a mitzvah, if it's a fake lulav and esrog, it's not a mitzvah. But according to the first opinion, the author doesn't agree with this, but according to the one opinion, that you just want your child to get used to as if he's doing a mitzvah. Then he'll get into the he'll be trained into it. So to Avraham Avinu, he wasn't actually doing anything in any of his mitzvahs in the physical world. The reason he was just doing things was for these two reasons: either because it was manifestation of his own experience, or it was because to prepare the world as a sign, a preparation for the giving of the Torah. But it wasn't the goal wasn't the physical action per se. So this explains why the mitzvahs that Hashem did not command them to do, why those mitzvahs, which were called mitzvahs because they were a precursor of mitzvahs that we do, but you're right, they weren't commanded by Hashem, why these mitzvahs were called fragrances. Again, they didn't have a lasting effect in the world, and why not? Because they didn't come from the essence of Hashem. And as opposed to mitzvahs that we do, they come from the essence of Hashem. The mitzvah of circumcision is unique, and mitzvah Hashem, we'll learn about that next time. As Rambam says, your heart should pay attention to this fundamental truth, that all the mitzvahs that we do are not because our forefathers did mitzvahs, but rather we do mitzvahs because Hashem commanded us to do them at Matan Torah through Moshe Rabbeinu, and yet the Rambam says, like the mitzvah of circumcision that Avram Avinu did. So we see these two opposites. On the one hand, the Rambam is telling us we do the mitzvah of circumcision only because Moshe Rabbeinu told us, and yet he says like Avram Avinu did. So there's two components in Milah, which Hashem, as we'll get to, God willing, in the next class. Any other questions?
Comments? Cucumbers.
Yes, Dr. Ressman.
This is very thinking that you said the mikvah was 23 amos deep.
Yeah.
So an amos is from the elbow to the fingertips, right? So
Yeah.
maybe a 35-foot deep mikvah.
Yeah. It came from a place that was so deep, meaning that was so high, that was so elevated. So in the Beis HaMikdash, it wasn't on the floor. It was on the second floor of the Beis HaMikdash. You had to go up to go to the mikveh. So it wasn't, but it was the elevation where the water came from was 36 feet high, and therefore they knew based upon where the floor of the mikveh was how deep the mikveh was. I don't remember how deep the mikveh was. It wasn't the full 36 feet deep.
You still can't dive into it. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I've just never seen a mikvah on the second story.
All right. L'chaim.
You come in a shul, Zev?
Thank you.
Wait, is Jonathan here until?
You come in a shul?
I only get back on the 22nd,
Where are you?
Montreal. When are you leaving? No?
This evening.